Okay, you guys have been asking for how much this is costing us to do full-time slow travel. So we're going to take a look at the first 6 months and 6 countries of this slow travel adventure and see what it's really costing us. And Amelia doesn't know what these numbers are yet, so you guys are going to find out at the same time that she does, and we're going to get to see her reaction.
Yeah, okay, so I'm a little nervous because I know how much some of this stuff costs because I book most of the Airbnb, so I do have an idea, but I don't know what to expect. And I know when we first got to Portugal, we kind of went crazy and we were acting like we were on vacation, and then we went to Rome, so I'm afraid we've blown our budget, JP.
Yeah, our budget is not exactly where we thought it would be. There are some ways we've identified to reduce our costs as we go along. We're going to share those with you as we talk about each of the main sections here. But before we get started though, I want to say that there is a caveat here that there's 2 of us. So if you're a single person, it will be less than what we're paying, maybe 30 to 40% less. Also, this is for our first 6.3 months to be precise, everything from Portugal all the way through Montenegro. We have not included France because we're still here and don't have all of those numbers accumulated yet. So once we have those, we'll probably do another video. And we're going to do a video where we look at each country by certain factors according to cost, like how much we spend per day and at restaurants and on lodging. So if you want to see those, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video so YouTube knows to recommend it to you.
That'll be a good one too.
Yeah.
Although I'm afraid to see our restaurant stuff.
Yeah, the cheapest country will not be a shock to anyone. Okay. The most expensive might be. All right, so let's start by looking at the main categories that we have in our expenses, starting with lodging, the most expensive. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Am I allowed to look at the outline or?
No, don't look at the outline. Right. No, you can. That's fine.
I don't want
to ruin the surprise. I'm pretty sure that the big eye bulge will probably give it away. Okay. All right, so for lodging, we started our stay at a 4 Points by Sheraton in Matosinhos, Portugal. We stayed there for 2 nights, so that was more expensive. That was the second most expensive place we stayed.
But that was by design because we knew we wanted to stay in a hotel because we wanted to be able to check in right away, but we were able to at least store our luggage. So we wouldn't have been able to do that if we had rented an Airbnb.
Yeah.
So that was money well spent.
Yeah, and plus we were able to get used to the jet lag.
Yes, that was a bit painful.
We also stayed in a really nice hotel in Podgorica while we were there for 4 nights, and it was really expensive, although in the US it would have been double what we paid. It was, I would say, what, a 4-star hotel? It was a super nice
It was so
hotel.
nice. The hotel room was massive. Yeah, I was really surprised by that because we stayed in a couple hotels when we went back to the US, and that courtyard we stayed in San Antonio was so small. We barely had enough room for our suitcases.
We also stayed in 2 kind of small but well-positioned condos in both Porto and Seville. They were both kind of close to the historic center. In Porto, we were right in the historic center, and those were a lot more expensive. We since learned how to save money by staying a little bit further out. Okay, so the total average per month that we spent on lodging is $2,162. And again, some of those have skewed the results upwards. You could definitely save money by staying in smaller places or further outside the historic or tourist areas, or if you are a single traveler, consider staying in hostels. They're actually really nice outside the United States, and a lot of people do that. It's a great way to meet other people and other travelers.
Well, you can also rent a room in an Airbnb too.
Yeah.
Now we're renting 1 bedrooms, which are more expensive. But going back to that dollar amount, you said it was over $2,000 a month. Okay, I can feel my cheeks kind of getting red. I don't like spending a ton of money, but I knew this was going to be more expensive. So
But to put that in perspective though, that was what we were paying for that tiny postage stamp apartment in Denver in 2017, if you include the parking and the utilities, internet, cable. This is everything included, so we don't have to pay for any of the other utilities with that.
Okay, that's a good point. I knew it was going to be more expensive because short-term housing is a lot more expensive, unfortunately. So I guess that's not terrible. I was hoping it would be closer to like the $1,500 mark.
What we found is that the Airbnb costs are like 2 to 3 times more than what you could rent the same place for with a long-term 1-year or more lease. All right, take a deep breath, Amelia. Now for the next shocker category, restaurants. This is just eating out. The groceries are the next category, but restaurants are a bit more than we expected them to be. So I keep track of how many times we eat out and like how much each one was. So I've come up with an average here per meal too. So we ate out 101 times in that 6 months for an average of 17 times per month. So that's basically like one meal every other day for a monthly cost of $683, which is $43 per meal, or an average of $21.50 each per meal. What are your thoughts about that, Amelia?
Well, it's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be, because I know that I felt like sometimes we ate out a lot. Like when we went to Portugal, we ate out a lot because it was raining and we were close to everything. So that's what we did.
Yeah.
But then there's other times when we barely ate out at all.
This did not include our 10 days in the U.S., by the way, where we ate out 9 times and spent an average of $65 per meal, or $32.50 per person. So that was $11 more than our average for all of Europe has been.
I guess, honestly, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, because there was a couple of times when we went out, like I was surprised at when we went out and ate in the Old Town area of Couture. Those were kind of expensive.
They were expensive.
So,
yeah, Couture was a bit shocking for the pricing, especially for the restaurants.
Okay, so...
Also, we eat at nice restaurants. Usually at dinner time. We don't often go out for lunch. We usually make our own lunch. So these are nice restaurants where you go in and sit down and somebody brings you the stuff. It's not fast food. It's not street food. We don't eat that kind of food.
No, we don't.
And we usually drink wine with dinner. We usually have a glass of wine, and that adds probably 20 to 30% to the bill. So if you want to save money on restaurants, don't drink.
That is true. The alcohol does increase, or appetizers or desserts. So we cut that stuff out, because we did that. Remember in Granada, we went out a couple times and had the whole full course. We ate way too much because I couldn't say no to this incredible chocolate egg dessert that they had.
Up next, we're going to talk about the cost of our groceries, and you're going to be shocked to see how much more affordable it is to cook your own meals when you travel. And that's one reason why we rent places with kitchens, so that we can cook. And one of the first things we do when we step foot in the door is we connect to the Wi-Fi and then turn on our VPN. And that's why we're happy to talk about Surfshark, today's sponsor. We've been traveling throughout Europe for the past 8 months and using all kinds of public Wi-Fi in Airbnbs, hotels, restaurants, bus stations, train stations, airports, and we always use a virtual private network, or VPN, to protect our privacy. Surfshark secures our data and our identity by protecting us from hackers, phishing scams, and ransomware attacks. Surfshark never logs or collects our data while we're online, so we're confident knowing no one is tracking us. We use Surfshark to change our virtual location by selecting different servers in different countries. That allows us to connect to websites back in the US that may not allow us to connect in some of the countries we visited. We also use it for streaming services, because depending on what country we connect to, we get different programming options on our Netflix account, which is really awesome because we've been able to watch some of our favorite shows that we haven't seen recently. Right now, Surfshark has a great offer. You get 4 months extra that comes with 24/7 support. You get one account and you can connect all of your devices to it. And it's no risk because they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So just scan this QR code right here or check below for a link and use promo code AAJP to get 4 months extra. Now for groceries, this is how much we spent on the food that we cooked ourselves. We spent $599 per month, or $20 per day, or $10 per person. And I actually calculated the number of meals that equated to based on how often we ate out and assuming we ate 3 meals per day. So that was $4.05 per cooked meal per person versus $21.50 when we ate out. So it costs 5 times more to eat out at a restaurant.
Okay, I'm not surprised by this one at all, because I know what we go and buy at the grocery store, and we never buy anything that is super expensive. So, wow, but to hear the 5 times more at the restaurants, that's really good to know.
And the grocery shopping bill included wine. We don't drink wine every day when we eat at home, but we do occasionally. So that included that. Also, another caveat here is that we eat a fully plant-based diet, and that is a lot more affordable to eat than if you eat meat, dairy, and eggs, which are more expensive. So your bill, I know we've been criticized for this before, not sharing this, because our diet is less, it costs less than the average diet. So you probably want to add maybe 20 to 30% to your budget for that.
Well, but I noticed that the groceries just across the board are really affordable. Every place we've been throughout our travels, it's very similar to Ecuador and when we went to Mexico and Colombia. So I'm not surprised by the groceries at all.
Yeah, and some countries were more than others. Again, we're going to talk about that in that future video. We're going to do 9 European countries versus the United States and compare all of the costs. You guys are going to be shocked. You will too, Amelia.
I think I'm going to too, because now I want to know right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not allowed to look at the numbers.
No, you can't. I didn't put them in here either. So.
I know, I see that.
Okay, airfare is the next biggest expense that we've had. And most of this was spent getting from Kansas, where we were at my parents', to Portugal. So I included that in our airfare numbers because if you're coming from the US or Canada, you're going to have those expenses.
Yeah, you have to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, so we spent $2,295 total on airfare. That averages out to $362 per month. $1,300 of that was from the US to Portugal. That was 57%. Since then, we've only spent $1,000 total to fly from the various places, Porto to Seville, Malaga to Rome, Rome to Athens, and that averages out to $500 each for the 6 months that we've been in Europe. And that's total, $500 each.
That's not surprising to me either, because now that we're over here, we're able to get those closer flights. It's not like flying in the US where it's a lot more expensive. Like when we had to fly from San Antonio to Kansas, I think that cost us
$250 each. It was like $500.
One way.
Yeah, one way is $500 just to fly from San Antonio to Kansas City.
Yeah, and we actually got a pretty good price on those tickets to Portugal.
Okay, our health insurance is our next biggest expense. We still have our health insurance with a company in Ecuador. They cover us for travel-related emergencies. It's not routine care in Europe, but it does cover us for emergencies. That is $261 per month. It went up again this year because of our age and I think because of the pandemic.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I'm not really surprised by this, although I didn't remember it going up to that point. I do remember when we first got it, and I think it was like $174. So we may have to rethink that insurance, but it's still affordable. Yeah, so I'm not going to complain.
And it covers both of my pre-existing conditions now, my spine and my prostate issues. So.
Well, it also covers us as we travel every month. So it is what it is.
So if we have any need of healthcare, we can always go back there and get it covered. Our next biggest expense are clothing and shoes, because when we came here, we were not prepared for winter, and so we've also had to replace our shoes because we walk so much. We average like 5 to 7 miles per day, and that wears the soles off the shoes pretty quickly. So we've spent $212 per month on clothing and shoes.
So we've spent like over $1,800 on clothing and shoes?
That's $1,200.
Oh. Oops.
2 times 6 is 12.
Thank you. I can do math.
Okay, Amelia.
That's still kind of a lot.
It is.
I'm actually a little surprised by that. I guess it's adding up. Well, let's see. I had to buy a coat and sweaters, and you bought some sweaters.
And I bought
long johns. And I bought some like fleece tights. And yeah, I've had to buy 2 different pairs of shoes. Okay, all right. Well,
I know it's kind of expensive, but
that's kind of expensive. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, that's expensive. Okay, next up are taxis and Uber. We spent $155 per month, and most of that was in Rome because we were too afraid to use the metro, and that was a huge mistake. If you go to Rome, use the metro. Do not take. It actually isn't Uber. It's like iTaxi, but it works with the Uber app, and it's super expensive. If you do, we actually did one of the Uber Black, so you actually have to be a licensed private driver in Italy to be on Uber, and so it's like the Uber Black. You get the really nice Mercedes SUV kind of thing. Yeah,
we didn't know at the time that's what we were doing, though.
No. Yeah, so after a couple of times in the Uber, we decided to learn how to use the metro, and it really was not that scary. No, it was actually really easy, although it did kind of smell a little bit. I didn't like that, but it was cheap. All right, next up is health care. And that is different than health insurance. We split those out. So we spent a total of $739 on health care. $320 of that was for my crown that I broke. And then we spent $84 on our regular cleanings while we were in Albania. That was $42 a cleaning. Oh, and we got massages and Pagaritza. That was $75 each for $150. And then the rest, $89, was for our allergy meds, Zyrtec, and supplements, our B12, and cold medicine, because we've been sick. We've had, every time we fly in an airplane, it seems like we get sick.
Yeah, there's a lot of sick people around. So yeah, I forgot your crown was that much, which that actually isn't bad. It's still higher than I thought, because it feels like we don't really have much healthcare stuff going on, but we did get our cleanings, and the massages, they were a splurge. So that's another example of us behaving like we're on vacation.
Yeah, it was definitely vacation attitude sometimes. The $320 for the crown, though, my mom got one last year. It was $1,400. Yeah. So, and that was in Kansas, not like New York City. Let us know in the comments how much your dental work costs. We're curious. And also put in there where you are, where you're located.
By the way, when you just said New York City, it totally reminded me of that salsa commercial.
Well, this stuff's made in New York City. New York City. Jake, it's time you switch brands.
All right, next up are tour tickets. We spent $73 per month. That was in Granada, Malaga, Rome, Athens, and Kotor. We didn't do any tours in Albania. Well, we did the $3 tour in Albania.
What with ULED and Skoder?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, we did. I forgot about that. That was fun.
Awesome.
The Skoder video, you guys didn't watch it, and I completely forgot about it. So go watch that video. It's fun. We spent 72 hours in Albania's ancient city.
And it was amazing. Yeah. So, okay, that was money totally worth it, totally well spent.
What, on ULED?
On all
of the tours. Yeah.
I loved every tour we took.
If you're going to slow travel, this is probably something that you're going to want to budget for, because when you go to these places for the first time, it's really neat to go do some of the touristy stuff. And we've done a little bit pretty much everywhere we've gone.
Yeah, we try to do a lot that's free and take advantage of the free museums and just going to the gardens and stuff. But sometimes you got to take a tour.
We often do not pay to get in places.
No, we don't.
We're pretty cheap on that. So your budget may be higher if you want to go to some of the really cool attractions. We usually just walk by them and look at it from the outside. Okay, now for our miscellaneous, I just rolled all of this up because they all accounted to less than 1% of our spending. So we spent a total of $180 per month on Amelia's hair, coffee, like when we would go out to a coffee shop. I didn't include that in restaurants. So snacks, train travel, which we have really not spent very much money on.
No, it's very affordable.
It's so affordable, and we've only done it a couple times. So metros, which we've basically only very minimally done.
Well, we usually walk, but we learned our lesson in Rome, and the tram in Athens.
At the tram, well, that counts as metro.
Oh, okay.
Metros and trams, whatever.
That tram was awesome.
So the tourist tax in Montenegro, it was 43 euros, so like $48. And then the co-working space in Malaga, our eSIM runs us $13 per month. That gives us data. So we spend an average of $13 per month on the eSIM.
Yeah, that's a great deal because it's been so reliable.
Yeah.
Okay, so how much did you say the miscellaneous? 180?
180 per month on all of that other stuff. Everything else rolled up. Really not.
That's not terrible.
No.
I mean, I know my hair is more expensive now that I'm dyeing it again, but no regrets.
I know. I gotta say, I like the blonde. You look really good as a blonde.
I like it.
Yeah, gentlemen do prefer blondes. Yeah, so let's see. We're going to talk about the cheapest countries and all that stuff in that other video. So now, just for the roll-up, the total cost for 2 people was $4,769 per month. It averaged out to $159 per day. And we don't rent cars.
Okay, so I'm thinking, processing these numbers.
Okay, so this is full-time travel. It's going to cost more. And we want to see places.
I know.
And we're treating
horrible.
We're treating these like exploratory trips too, and it's our job to show you places and so therefore we're doing things a little bit differently than maybe a person who doesn't have a YouTube channel might do.
Okay, so I guess I will say I remember when we started this that I wanted to try to keep it between, well, $3,500 to $4,500 depending on where we were. So I think all things considered, we've done pretty well.
Yeah. Well, we did. One of the places we stayed was at $3,000, a little over $3,000 a month.
Well, that was actually less than my budget.
Yes, it was.
I mean, I know it's not realistic for us to keep it to like $2,000 a month unless we stayed outside or in cheaper areas. So we did, yeah.
There's no way we could do it for 2,000.
Not the way we're traveling. If we did like house sitting or.
Oh yes, that's one thing we didn't mention actually was that you can do house sitting or pet sitting to save money on your lodging. We know people who have done that, and you can also stay in places longer, and if you do that, you might be able to negotiate a lower rate. So like on Airbnb, if you want to stay a place for 2 months or 3 months, you can probably message that host and negotiate a lower nightly rate to save money.
Yeah, and that's something we have not done because we typically just stay in a place for 2 weeks because we like to move around so we could explore more of the area. But that means we're spending a little bit more money. Yeah,
so I think a single traveler could do this on less than $3,000 a month pretty comfortably, and that's traveling the way we do. You can, if you're really frugal and budget conscious, you can do it for probably $1,500 a month doing some of these lodging saving methods that we've mentioned. We do know some people who do this on $1,500 to $2,000 a month as a single person.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely doable, especially if you rent a room or from a local person too, like our friend who did that in Ecuador. I mean, she's lived on a very small budget. So
yeah.
You can make it work for sure.
Yeah. So if you're a data junkie like I am, I'm going to put a link below, and you can also scan this QR code wherever it is on the screen here. And it will take you to our blog post where I'm going to put all of these details and break out everything for you so you can look at it. We're going to share how we afford to do this in a future video. We're going to have that one out in a few weeks. So stay tuned for that. You're probably going to be really surprised by how we can do this. And one reason alone covered half of our lodging for an entire year.
All right, that is all we have for this video. Hopefully you guys found it enlightening as I did. And before you go, leave us a like, please. We really appreciate that. And we will see you all in our next video.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.